Season 3 of The Pass is here. I know it's long overdue. We have a new intro. We still got the same content. Well, actually, it's a little bit of new content because there's new things going on in 2019. So buckle up. We got a lot of things to talk about on The Pass. What's going on, y'all? What's good? Episode 246 of The Pass is here. I'm your host, BT. I am going to go ahead and let y'all know now. This is probably going to be as verbally but unextended of a podcast for the sake that the title kind of entails what I'm going to talk about but not give a lot of attention to, and I'll get into that near the end. But we do have a lot to cover. Sports has been in its unique hibernation, but it's gained its traction for the sake of what has occurred. Meaning, we were waiting for the NBA Finals to arrive. We were looking to see who would win between Toronto and Milwaukee. Milwaukee was able to get defeated, which shocked everyone, because I think Giannis is a good player, but it's a tough factor if you take Giannis off of the team. There's really no one else that's stepped up. So now we're at the NBA Finals, and coincidentally enough, our two teams are Golden State and Toronto. What makes this an interesting matchup between these teams is that Toronto has home court. I don't want to say home field, but they have home court advantage. And that in some ways can be misleading, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Currently, there's only been one game played, and that was on Thursday. And the Raptors were in the lead majority of that game. Looking at the box score and the breakdown, Toronto did win by 9. The most talked about story during that game was Pascal Siakam, who scored a team high 32. And I guess it's kind of one of those no one saw it coming, but we also have to remember this is the finals. So in the finals, there are guys that you wouldn't expect to show up who are suddenly going to say, you know what, this is my time to shine. This is my opportunity to make that big play. So I'm going to do what I can to the best of my ability. And that's basically what this series, at least game 1, showed for me personally. They had, as far as with Toronto as a team, they actually had 5 players in double figures. Kyle Lowry didn't have the best of games, but he had a good game. I mean, he shot 2 for 2. He hit 1 3. Oh, I'm sorry. He was 2 for 9, hit both free throws and hit a 3. So he wasn't as big of a factor, but he had 9 assists. Kawhi played Kawhi basketball. It generated and talked about what we dislike doing, which is the comparison and looking at now. This is the first finals series in 8 years without LeBron. How did Toronto stand up? And it's one game. And we have to keep that in mind. And I even factored that in when I asked my sports group the question of, even with them winning game 1, is it time for us to go ahead and say the series is over, or do we need to let it play out first and then see what happens? Which I think the latter is usually the more convenient and obvious option. But we always know with sports that one game can measure everything. And it's kind of a game-by-game series, especially with both teams. DeMarcus Cousins did play. He only had 3 points. If you look at Golden State as a team, it was kind of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and everybody else. Draymond had 10. He didn't really have the best of shooting nights, but it was a decent gameplay from him. The talk of the game, of course, which I really wouldn't make this a story, but obviously for media's sake, it's pulling for stories. when the game was over. Well, first, Drake, as Drake would do, wore a Dell Curry jersey for the Raptors. And it always generates that concern or the question of, he wore the Raptors jersey. Looks like the Warriors might win this game. Obviously, oddly enough, Golden State did lose, so that was a shocker in the jersey swap. But I guess because they had Curry's name, who knows? But anywho, you had the game play out. Toronto wins. I guess Draymond and most of the Warriors players happened to walk by where Drake was sitting, and Drake kind of pointed out in saying, I guess they were having a couple words back and forth. It wasn't as big of a story, but I also think it's kind of that obvious tone set of this series. If you look at history, this happened before if you go back and look at I believe it was the second time not OKC. The second time the Cavs and the Warriors played when Durant joined when they won the second championship. LeBron and Durant both were like in each other's face, talking smack, letting it be known, this is my house. We gonna do what we do, all that type of jazz. But in the end, like I said, Toronto did win. So now it's Golden State's turn to see if they can win game 2 and get control of home court. A lot of people in my sports group have been looking at this series and kind of breaking it down as saying that they feel as though the Warriors are still the favorite. And it's possible. Game 2 is going to be very telling. If Toronto wins game 2, I have a very strong feeling they could win the series. The reason why is, unlike Golden State, Toronto doesn't have to win any games in Golden State unless they give away a game in Toronto, if that makes sense. So, like I said, we'll keep an eye on the series, and more than likely by next week, there will be a couple of games that have been played, and we'll catch those games and give them the proper fanfare and attention. The Lakerland is out of control. That's how I'm going to start the segue. And I'm starting the segue with that tone only because in as much time of watching basketball, never have I seen a team get more attention. One, that's not in the playoffs, but two, has made more off-season activity and noise than deemed necessary to factor in that we actually have two teams in the finals, and neither team has LeBron on them. LeBron is the least talked about person with the Lakers who plays for the organization. And it's just mostly you're watching a house, like the house has already been set on fire and you're just standing there and watching it slowly burn to flames. And that is what the Lakers organization looks like right now. And in all honesty, I feel like it's scary. So I'm going to kind of paint a timeline. I'm going to talk about this story and just give my personal thoughts about it. You have Magic coming into the organization, gets, players in place that he, is trying to build his championship team. Transactions occur. They put him into position. He was supposed to have tried to get or be put in place to fire Luke Walton. He didn't want to make that decision. They were looking to have him fired, but they didn't do it. And so between that, amongst other things, Magic steps down. A few days later, Walton retires. Walton is fired. And Magic then goes on a Magic spree, meaning he went on different platforms. He was on First Take. ESPN Sports Center for the playoffs, they did a special where they were talking with him about this series. About everything going on with LA. And it put us to where we are now. And now it's turning into kind of turning the attention to Rob Pelinka, who they feel is disingenuous. A member of the LA coaching staff suggested that Pelinka wasn't trustworthy. We think more often than not, he's not being truthful. That goes throughout the organization. One former Lakers player also told Holmes the situation was bleeping crazy. Following Magic Johnson's resignation as the Lakers president of basketball operations, Pelinka is in charge of LA's personnel moves. When Johnson appeared on ESPN's First Take last week, he cited backstabbing as the reason behind his departure and singled out Pelinka. They showed a video. We're not going to show that video or play that video here. Per Holmes, Pelinka called Johnson's comments saddening and disheartening and added, "They're just simply not true." Pelinka, who is best known for representing Lakers legend Kobe Bryant before LA hired him as its GM in 2017, was also accused of deflecting blame and not taking ownership or responsibility in certain situations by anonymous Lakers basketball operations staffers. One example provided to Holmes of a time when Pelinka was untruthful came in March 2018 when Dwayne "Rock" Johnson was addressing the team at practice as part of the Lakers' Genius Talk series. During the session, Pelinka claimed that he facilitated a dinner between Bryant and Heath Ledger, after Ledger played the Joker in Dark Knight. To give an excerpt about that, Ledger died 6 months before The Dark Knight was released in July of 2008, and a source told Holmes that the dinner between Bryant and Ledger never took place. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith reported Bryant was livid after being included in the general narrative around the Lakers, which is presumably a reference to the Ledger anecdote. I'm not going to really read this A to Z, but it's tough because when things go awry, we don't know who to blame. So we just blame people. I feel as though Pelinka doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going to just say it. I'm trying to think, because that was in 2017. I believe when Dimitri was on the show, because he's a Lakers fan, and that might be a plan to get him back on the show for kind of deep dive in this conversation, because this is one of those packed/unpacked conversations that I don't want to say you have to be in the room to get it, but it's one of those you really have to be a fan in understanding how out of control this looks. And in Pelinka's case, he just doesn't seem like he's connected to the team. I don't know if there's an end game for him. I don't know if he's looking at it from an agent's perspective instead of an owner's perspective. Like, there's a lot missing and underlying behind this. Jeanie Buss, I'm still trying to politely know and understand her role, because I feel as though when her dad passed, and this is my opinion, when her dad passed, I felt as though the organization started to snowball. You saw the snowball effect coming. The brothers were fighting for ownership, I guess based on how it was set up. They ended up, Jeanie was made part owner and kind of like one of the head front office folks with the Lakers organization. And from that point on, it just didn't look right. All I know is the Lakers I don't even know if I want to say they're set up for success, because number one, which I hope they don't do, because the draft is a few weeks away, I hope they don't give up their lottery pick to somebody else to trade to get a big player. If they give up their lottery pick to try and get Anthony Davis, it would be the stupidest thing ever. I'm going to say it like that. I understand you want to get LeBron and AD together. I know that's clutch sports. All of that's great. All of that's fine. They're both part of Nike. Still not a good move in the long haul. That's how I'm looking at it. That then brings up the next factor of what are we going to do with LeBron? Does LeBron stay in LA? Do they pull off a trade to get him out of LA? that one still is a question mark for me as well. I also look at, and see what's tough about it is because of how sports is set up. And maybe this is something that I'm still learning. And someone, if you're listening to the show, past podcast bt@gmail.com, please send me an email and help me understand. How does it work with the front office as far as if the president ain't doing right, can they get the president impeached from the team? I know that's like a stretch because I'm referring to it with presidency of government in office, but with a sports team, how does that work? Like if it doesn't work out and this just ain't the right move, how do they get that person out of office or out of that position? And I'll go ahead and talk about this before we continue because I know y'all probably wondering, where's the webcam? Why are you not doing a live podcast? I decided today that the live recording was not, I want to fine tune that a little bit. And I only say fine tune it in the sense that I want my computer to do what it's capable of doing, but I also don't want the podcast to be affected because I'm trying to get a good shot for a recording. I would rather just set up another device to record and then upload it that way. But to actually have my computer connected to a webcam, trying to record my voice as well as my own recording and my own software trying to record my podcast, it just didn't work out, and I almost lost my editing. I almost lost my audio for last week's show. I'll say it like that. I was able to recover it, but like I said, if it didn't sound like it was at its best peak, that could be a factor. So I'm taking ownership for that. So that's why this show is a little more subtle, more like just we're gonna record and get into it. Next up, Serena. And it's rare we do tennis stories, but for this one, we're definitely going to talk about this because Serena can't do anything right as far as tennis is concerned. So Serena has a partnership with Nike, as most people know. She is working with Virgil Abloh, who's part of Nike. They did show an outfit or a dress that Serena would be wearing for the actual, for the clothing line. What no one expected was that part of the outfit that she wore would be what she would play in for her tennis match. And it caused a lot of controversy. And this was in the first round match at the French Open. Williams did not sport a full gown when she walked out onto, well, let me go back because I don't want to just jump into the story. Serena Williams opening matches at any Grand Slam are always on the radar. And while the 23-time Grand Slam winners play made the ultimate statement on Monday, Williams' fashion statement in first round play at the French Open made plenty of headlines as well. Shortly before posting a first round winner over Vitalia Dachenko of Russia, Williams debuted her latest apparel designed for her by Virgil Abloh in partnership with Nike. This coming a year after the black compression material catsuit caused controversy. The outfit drew criticism from French tennis officials that resulted in backlash and support for Williams. Williams did not sport a full gown when she walked out onto Court Philippe Chatrier on Monday, but a scaled-down version with the words Mother Champion, Queen, and Goddess in French as part of the print. At last year's French Open, Williams wasn't only trying to make a fashion statement when she wore the outfit that she called her Wakanda-inspired catsuit, referring to the fictional nation in the film Black Panther. The full-length leggings were also worn for health reasons in what was her first Grand Slam tournament since giving birth to her daughter 9 months earlier. They were a precaution after a health scare related to blood clots. French Tennis Federation President Bernard Guticelli later said the outfit would no longer be accepted. One must respect the game and the place, he said. Williams downplayed the comments at the U.S. Open, saying she no longer needed to wear leggings because she found that compression tights also worked to keep her blood circulating. She wore tights at Wimbledon when she made it to the final. As for Monday's match against Danchenko, Williams got off to a slow start, committing 14 unforced errors before dropping the first set 2-6. Then they go over the match itself. I'm going to say this because I talked about this with a couple of coworkers, and I'm going to talk about it here only because it's important. This outfit became a big deal because of her body stature as far as athletically. She's not your average athlete in tennis. I preface that statement and I make that statement leading into what I'm going to share, which is if any other, and I'm not even going to be, this isn't even going to be a black or white racist presentation, but I'm going to say it because it's true. If any white athletes in tennis had her body and wore those outfits, they wouldn't be able to pull it off. Serena doing it generates more attention and more concerns of what's to be misled and what could be seen. When in reality, if you're coming to see someone play, you're there to see them for tennis, not for their attire. And this kind of almost, and I use this reference when I talk to my coworkers, and I'm using it today. This is similar to the Kaepernick instance, only in the fact that when you do something that's bigger than the league, there's a problem. Serena has always been known to do things bigger than the sport, and no one has ever been a fan of that. And this is an example of why. So now with it occurring like it has, it causes that talk of, well, why are we looking, are we wanting to see her play, or are we wanting to invest time in her outfit? This confirms that the outfit was more important than the gameplay, because she won the match, but no one talked about the match. It would be equivalent to if LeBron played in like the full bodysuit, as far as like the sleeve suit with the leg compressions. If he had that full outfit on, no one would talk about the fact that he dropped 40 points or had a triple-double. It would be, look at the outfit he wore. I think he went through that a few years ago when he played in a mask, and there was a question of the black mask, because the black mask looked compelling, and it was a big deal that someone would wear something like this, and it's allowed, and it was like, but he's doing it so he won't mess up his nose. But let's not worry about him messing up his nose. She's doing this for her health reasons, and we're not worrying about that. We're more concerned about how appealing the outfit is. But I digress. Our final sports story we have is, right now the NFL is trying to finalize collective bargaining agreement talks. And one of the things that is coming to light with this is whether the NFL is going to up the games from 16 games to 18, which then would put you at a 19-week schedule. If I'm pinpointing that correctly, if the season starts in September, that likely means you wouldn't start playoff matches until mid-January. Because usually they, if you factor in 19 weeks worth of football, that's kind of what it's gonna mark you at. So right now, when the two sides sit down at the negotiating table for the next collective bargaining agreement, owners may pursue an expanded regular season schedule with the NFL Players Association. According to the Washington Post, Mark Mask, some of the league's 32 owners are in favor of an 18-game season, partly because additional regular seasons would generate a significant revenue boost. I'm going to talk about that in a bit too. The change wouldn't necessarily extend the season itself, though, because Maskey wrote the league would potentially pare down the season. Mask reported owners might pursue an expansion of the playoffs from 12 to 14 teams in the event an 18-game season fails to gain traction with the NFLPA. 538 Scott Kaskmar argued in January 2018 that playoff expansion would water down the drama, but that probably wouldn't stop the league from padding its wallet further with money earned from more postseason games. Dallas owner Jerry Jones threw out the idea of an 18-game regular season last August. As part of the plan, teams would shorten training camp and the preseason. NFLPA President Eric Winston responded to Jones' comment shortly thereafter, telling Dan Patrick, the guys don't see the positive trade-offs. Players are apparently willing to dig in their heels when it comes to the CBA. Sports Business Journal's Liz Mullen reported Tuesday that NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith sent a memo to agents that the NFLPA was advising players to plan for a work stoppage of at least a year in length. This could mean that the shortage part is basically that there's a chance that there could be a lockout. And in sports terms, no one likes a lockout. What makes a lockout even more challenging is if the lockout lasts longer than needed, where players are losing paychecks. AAF, XFL might have to cash in on this opportunity. Here's why I say this. If the AAF comes back with another season, which I doubt, or if the XFL has a decent start to their season and the collective bargaining agreement doesn't work out, some of these guys could be looking for a job. And if they're trying to keep themselves employed and playing, unless there's stipulations in their contracts, they're going to do what they need to do. So that's part one. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about the expansion of the games and the revenue. For every, and I probably have said this on the show before, but I'm going to say it again. Every team has its own network. Let's go ahead and put that out on the table. If you don't know that or did not know that, I'm gonna go ahead and give you that. Every team has its own personal network. Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers, Carolina Panthers, they all have a personal network that shows their games. The NFL is going to show their games. Fox is going to show their games. ABC and ESPN affiliates or whatever are going to show their games. Why do I bring all those names and why do I bring the networks into this equation? With there being 32 teams in NFL and adding 2 more games, that's 64 more games, which is 64 more sources of revenue and income to the organizations. Granted that you're looking at the salaries for anyone who works at these venues, but that's more profit coming in for the sport. Still trying to figure out why is it important. What do people do when they go to games? They buy food, they buy drinks, they buy merchandise. If they're buying merchandise, that's more profit. The profit is where this can work for the NFL if they extend it to 18 games. Getting all 32 teams or getting majority rules on this rule or this process is where we're really going to see if this is what the NFL is looking for. It's going to be scary to think of, but there is a strong chance that there could be, as they're saying, a stoppage in the NFL. And for as many of my friends who love sports, they love NFL, which I do too. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act better than anybody. I play basketball, but I like watching football. Losing football, even I think the year when they had the lockout and it was a shortened season, it's it's a true camaraderie to see people come together and watch football. The only time basketball gets that same traction or same attention is on Christmas Day when they play like the 5 games or whatever. But outside of that, it's not even close. So if they can get this deal pulled off or get this all put into principle or processed or whatever, then this looks good for the NFL. As I always like to say, we'll keep an eye on it. If it comes back up as another story or an update, we'll definitely continue it on the path. We're now at our buffer, as I like to call it, between sports and stuff. So this is our stuff section. This is gonna be a tech heavy side of sports. There's a little bit of gaming, but it's more tech talking than normal. The first story had potential to be ass of the week, but I have a strange ass of the week, and I'll explain it when we get to it, and I'll save all that when we get to that point. But there was a teen who thought it would be in his best interest, and they don't show his name, do it? Yep, they don't even give his name. He hacked the Apple system. Or he hacked Apple, period, with the intent of thinking that they would give him a job. Backstory, before we talk about Apple, there's a movie, or a lot of movies that come on that show what they call white collar hackers who are able to hack into systems, get information. They go to jail for it. And then eventually they're like, hey, we'll let you out, but you have to be able to get into this said system. In most cases, they usually do, but they do that to kind of see what vulnerabilities are in their system. In this case, it was the exact opposite. The teenager pled guilty while admitting he had hoped that this would land him a job with the iPhone maker. He'd heard that Apple hired a European who had done the same thing and assumed that a job was waiting for him the moment he was discovered. Law enforcement had other plans. Thankfully, it doesn't appear to be the early end to his career. His partner, who's in the hacks, the teen, won't face a conviction. He is on a $500 or $346 good behavior bond for 9 months. He was 13 when he started the hacks, and the magistrate in the case believed testimony that the teen had been using his technological powers for good since then. He hoped to study digital security and criminology at university and wasn't relishing the thought of a hacking conviction staining his record. As for Apple, a spokesperson didn't comment on the case itself in a statement to Australia's ABC. Instead, it stressed that its staff vigilantly protect companies' networks and contain the hacks before reporting them to the police. No one's personal data was exposed. Despite the follies of youth, the teen may just have to do well in school, land the right jobs, and make a few connections like everybody else. Basically, Apple got hacked, and of all people, they didn't expect it to be a 13-year-old. But it also was his way of getting, it almost gave him his own, I don't want to say 15 minutes of fame, but it got him a little bit of exposure, which some people don't, no media, like there's no such thing as bad publicity. I guess I'm trying to say that wrong, but if you get publicity, you'll value the publicity over getting, if it's even considered good or bad. And that's basically what happened with this. The next story is close to me because I actually went to school at ECPI. And so I was excited when I heard about the story and it's showing where technology is taking us. They're here in Richmond. There are 2 ECPI campuses. One is in Innsbruck and one is in on Moorfield, down off of Midlothian. And I'm gonna let a layer down because I like doing it, and this has also been something that's helped me personally. I earned my degree in technology or in computers back in 2005. I was in the field for about 2 years. When I was in the field, I was enjoying what I did. I valued it. I loved it. When I lost the job, I lost the passion. I lost the desire. I realized recently, and this is going way off from stuff, but I'm going to get back to this article because I want to share this as a personal sentiment. And this, anyone who listens, if you know people that can help, by all means. Currently, I am employed. I'm not going to say where, but I am looking to get back into the IT field. I am pursuing my Network Plus certification. I've actually talked to someone else about possibly going into cybersecurity, trying to figure that out as well. But I'm mainly at the stage where it's time to get back to computers. I share this and I bring up the computer portion of it because when I attended school, there was no such thing as esports. If there was an avenue to get into esports at that time, I would have jumped on it immediately. I bring that part to the table because now ECPI University has esports teams at both campuses. They did a esports signing day, which is similar to National College Signing Day. They have been given scholarships to play video games in college. This is very big because this would not have been an opportunity 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like now this is hey, it's available if you want to try it or go for it. The school is one of 3 universities in Virginia, along with Everett and Northern Virginia Community College, to field teams in the fast-growing area of competitive video games. ECPI University has a long-standing tradition of leading the way locally and nationally for non-traditional learning and success. Esports is growing fast, and this is something our students are telling us that they want as a part of their college experience. The school will hold a signing day on Friday. Students receive scholarships ranging from $1,600 to $3,200 to join the team. They show a list of students who joined as well as the school that they attended. And they do have someone from my alma mater, which is good. We don't give gaming its proper credit. And this is an example of why. But I'm glad that it did make a wave, and it's a big deal for the gaming community. I like how they put this as a too long don't read story, but they give the simple emoji for the next story. So anyone who likes math, a lot of people hate math. So if you don't like math, I'd skip about 10 minutes. But I'm going to talk about something that's funny. And I never use this emoji to begin with, so I guess it wouldn't be a big deal to me. Apple has generated emojis for every possible thing, and they have more emojis that are on the way. I believe they're coming in iOS 13, which I'm hoping in a few weeks we'll talk about when WWDC occurs, as well as once E3 dies down and all that jazz. But it turns out that there's one specific emoji that Apple didn't do right. If you're doing math, you use a device. Before people did math on paper, with paper and pencil, with calculators on their smartphones, with YouTube, with Google. Shoot, I think I can even use it on here where you can do Spotlight and put in math problems that'll give you answers. They use what's called an abacus. I will be honest, I'm old, but not that old. Like, I think I remember seeing abacuses as a kid, but was never taught how to use them or where they benefited. I'm not going to read the story in its entirety, but what I'm going to say is the design, the condensed version of what this article is saying is that the image that was used to represent the emoji for the abacus is done wrong per the style of what an abacus is supposed to do in the real format of its numbering system and its breakdown. And it's based on the counting stones. If you look at the actual emoji, the counting stones that are supposed to be set up, they weren't done correctly. It would either be one by itself on one side, and then on the other side it would be 4, or it would be 2 on one side, and it would be 5 on the other side, which is to count for whatever it's for. Because like I said, me trying to learn how to use an abacus, I don't have it. I'm not gonna even lie. I'm a numbers guy, but this one I couldn't do it. But there was someone who was on Twitter who posted about this and was in shock and awe about it. So he put some attention behind it, which obviously made its waves to the internet, and it confirmed that the Apple's version of the abacus was wrong. Even in hindsight, proving that other devices, I think Android's emoji, the Google default emoji of it, and other programs had it correct. Apple just didn't have it right. Human error. I'm glad it was exposed, but it was a funny way of exposing it, which I had absolutely no problem with being presented. Our last stuff story is something I didn't expect, but it happened. And it's interesting because I still own one of these, but I own a much older version. And I thought I had it with me, but I realized it's not in this bag that I'm carrying. But the Apple gods lost their mind. And I say lost their mind in a very funny way. So anyone who owns a smartphone knows that one of the key things that makes or breaks smartphones is music. Because a lot of times we want music on the go. Some of us listen to YouTube. We got into the Pandora flow. Like, even with me talking about it last week with Pandora Plus and the Pandora standalone app, Pandora was the radio or the streaming service that everybody used because it was free and it was convenient. A lot of people didn't like the playlist that they would gain. That's another story. But nonetheless, you got pretty good plays. Well, Apple, the main factor for them, before the phones hit its main big point, it was iPods. Everyone had an iPod. I was even dumb enough where at one point I owned an iPod and I switched to Zune for like a couple of years. And Zune and I was kind of like night and day. I thought back on it because it's a weird situation that it occurred, but it's still interesting to look back and realize that it happened. I owned a Microsoft Zune. I had a lot of music on it. Some strange random point, I lost it. Never found it. Never tried to look for it. It was gone. And I was like, man, I wish I could get all that music that was on there. But even not having the music isn't a big deal because I have the songs in general. But just owning that MP3 player would have been interesting because I don't even think anyone has the Microsoft Zune software available to even be downloaded, to be played. You'd probably have to connect it through Windows Media. And obviously, if you're using a Mac, you're screwed, but that's another story. All random nostalgia, all minutia in this conversation. Because Apple decided to take its iPod Touch that a lot of people who I talked to, because I knew someone who was an Apple aficionado, like she's one of those people that keeps up with Apple better than I did. When I bought my iPod Touch, he was like, you're going to end up not needing that because they're not going to offer support, as well as they're not going to make any more versions. Like, they made one after mine, which was fine. But then they took the processor from the iPhone 7, which in all fairness, pretty good processor, because coming from iPhone, having an iPhone XS Max, I had the iPhone 7 Plus. Great processor. Like, the phone ran just fine. There really wasn't anything wrong with it. It was just, it was in the I'm ready to upgrade stage. But they took that processor, which is an A10 Fusion chip, and placed it in the iPod Touch. And they're giving you 3 sizes. You have the 32 gig, the 128 gig, and the 256 gig. The price range for them is $200 for the lowest, $300 for the 128, and for the big boy, the 256, you're looking at $400. Now, to be sure to remind everyone, if you're using this on the basis of just for music, you're gold, because you can just place your music on iTunes, push it on over, you're good. If you're not in that window and you're needing to stream, you better have Wi-Fi in your back pocket or keep a hotspot on your phone, because that's your only other alternative in getting the iPod Touch experience of streaming music. I will be the first to admit my iPod Touch is an alternative to stream when I don't feel like streaming directly from my cell phone. And it's just personal preference. The A10 chip provides enough firepower for a few features such as group FaceTime, calls, and Apple's ArcKit, which is augmented reality apps. The company says that compared to the older model, the updated version will offer up to 2 times faster CPU performance and up to 3 times faster graphics. This is to kind of get the big push on the Apple Arcade gaming subscription service, and to make sure that the new iPod Touch can still run those games. It all makes sense given Apple's recent focus on subscriptions. And this is also not to ignore the other subscription services that they have, between Apple News, Apple TV, Apple Gaming. All of those with an iPod Touch of this caliber with the latest iOS, win-win. It works, and it helps to kind of keep you afloat with their latest and greatest of services. And if you're getting any new updates, because it's going to push you into the iOS 13, which is coming in a couple of months. So that's that on sports stuff. Before we get into our ass of the week and our pass of the week, because I have not been doing it in a while, I do have some music, and I might surprise some people, because I know the last few weeks I've just kind of whisked by music but not talked much about it. But I actually have found some new artists or some new albums. First thing I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way now. Before recording today, I went to a concert. A friend of mine invited me to a concert, which I didn't know. She was just like, yeah, I'm going to a concert. I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't really get into the full breakdown of it. I said, all right, I'll go. I'll check it out, see what it's about. And on the way, she was telling me who was performing. She played one of the girls' songs. And when I realized it was Whipped Cream by Ari Lennox, I was like, oh, we're going to see Ari Lennox. Cool. Like, I like Ari Lennox. I've, been keeping up with her music. I didn't get on the SoundCloud wave, but I do want to go back and listen to those originals, because that gives you a better feel of her, gets the temperature of what she was singing and performing before she joined with J. Cole. But she did a very good performance. The opening acts were okay. One of them was pretty good. I actually plan on listening to her album But the other two of the other people, they're part of the group with Cole. And some things it sticks, and then it's like, it's just time. And then I think because everyone had been there so long, because I think doors open at like 7. She performed at about 10:15, 10:20. And she did she put on a 1 hour set, which I thought was pretty good. She performed a lot of songs. A lot of them I had not heard, or I hadn't heard in a while. But I did listen to that. Like I played her, and I've talked about it on the show already. That was, I think, a couple of weeks ago. She was actually, Shea Butter was the podcast cover. So this week I went back because I did not know. I guess you can say I was 2 weeks late. I did not listen to Tyler the Creator's album before a couple days ago. And wow, why did I miss this album? I didn't. I heard about it on other podcasts, and I heard about it on other platforms, but I didn't really listen to it and take it in. And the moment, and then enjoying it, it was a bomb ass album. And I think why I'm emphasizing it and really talking about it now is because the single that he did, Earthquake, I saw the video, and the video connected me to wanting to check out the album. El Capo by Jim Jones, you might want to check that one out too. I'm not just saying it because others are saying it. I personally feel like it is a pretty good album. Devon, I'm so horrible. Devon Terrell, he actually brought out a new single called What Is This? I gotta give him his credit, man. He is a content creator by far. Like, he creates music on the fly. And I'm picking up like each song, each album that comes out, like each of his singles that will drop each Friday, I try to catch and listen to. Because I did like Weird Nights, the intermission. And what was interesting was when I went to listen to Tyler the Creator's album, it took me back to his other album called Wolf, which had the song IFHY, or I Fucking Hate You. And when I listened to it, like watching the video, I need to understand this too with him. And I guess that's one of those creative mindsets, is each of his videos had like a theme, but both videos had an interesting theme involving like fire. And I'm just trying to get that understanding. I saw like a video on YouTube where he was like performing or getting ready to perform, and he was talking about like he's on stage just waiting, in his intro. And you're seeing, he's like, all these mosh pits got started, and he's like, y'all are just a bunch of idiots. Like, what are y'all doing? But in hindsight, I've been catching music as I can. As y'all know, I am still on the Lo-fi addiction train. Lo-fi hip hop obviously is one that I've been playing. I've been back on the Emotional Oranges again. Trying to see what else. Of course, the Lo-fi hip hop chill hop, which is the study beats to study to. I call her Study Girl. Study Girl's playlist gets played by me frequently and often, and I'm not gonna back down from that one. There's a slim to no chance of that happening. So that's our AirPod Escape music section of the podcast. Now to our ass of the week. And our ass of the week is Carlos Correa. He got the wrong happy ending because he got an in-home massage at his home, obviously, and it caused him to get a broken rib. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And they didn't say how the injury happened, and it remained to be the case leading up to that game. Then they turned around and gave a statement saying how he injured himself. I'm extremely disappointed about not being on the field with my teammates. I sustained a rib fracture during a massage at my home on Tuesday. To sustain an injury in such an unusual way makes it even more frustrating. However, I will work hard to get back on the field as quickly as possible to help our team achieve our goal of winning another championship. I think he's more embarrassed than anything. There's further mention that Correa isn't at the ballpark due to being instructed to limit his movement, which with a broken rib makes sense. What kind of injury is it that it happened during a massage? A broken rib from a massage? Lord, how strong was the masseur or the masseuse? Correa is listed at 6'4", 215 pounds. He's a strong 24-year-old professional athlete. He's not brittle. Holy smokes, that had to be the worst, the most violent massage of all time. He gets asked of the week because whoever gave you a massage, you need a new masseuse or masseur. Because if they hurting bone, like I get that they supposed to be trying to get your pressure points, but getting my pressure point to the point that you mess up a rib, nah, I'm cool. That just kind of caught me completely off guard. And I had to make it ass of the week only because that is the most unique way, an odd way to get an injury in of all sports, a non-baseball based activity. And of all things, it wasn't just that you had someone give you a massage. It was at your home. So he gets our ass of the week, and we'll just leave it at that. Now, I promised someone else that I would stick to my word on doing this. So I'm going to stick to that request. And I'm also, I want to say I did the same with the Nipsey Hussle story. But even though the media has gone bananas with it, there was and as you can see by the title, Virginia Beach, and it's a coincidence of this occurring. I went to Virginia Beach to see Ari Lennox. On the way to the beach, or on the way to the venue, this story was transpiring and had happened. So luckily, we were safe because we weren't anywhere near the area, my friend and I. But just when it all occurred, and I'm getting news notifications, because if you don't have it already, I think it's called news, like breaking news or something like that. The app literally will give you news information quicker than you can try to process it being posted. It's called Newsbreak. And all I can say is you'd be surprised by how quick that we can lose people. Like I said, I'm not going, so the actual gunman, I will not mention his name or their name. But the article has that information. You can read that at your convenience. There were multiple people injured. There were 11 people killed by the gunman, and eventually the gunman was killed. And this happened in Virginia Beach. This was at, let me see, I want to see if I can get the place. This was at the Virginia Beach Municipal Center. They did confirm they did give the names. So what I'm going to do, and actually it's 13. So I'm going to name the actual employees. The people who were identified, their names were Laquita Brown, Tara Welch Gallagher, Mary Louise Gale, Alexander Mikhail Gusev, Catherine A. Nixon, Richard H. Nettleton, Christopher Kelly Rapp, Ryan Keith Cox, Joshua A. Hardy, Michelle Missy Langer, and Robert Williams. So what we're going to do, and this is something that I'm going to be implementing into the month of June. And by the way, before I continue, June is Men's Health Month. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I'm going to make sure I listen to this podcast and mention this. Fellas, take care of yourself. Black men, take care of yourself. If that means going to the doctor, go to the doctor. If that means going to a counselor, go to a counselor. Don't try to act strong like you don't have it. If you need help, use what you have. I want to get out of the way. I'm going to hit our hour, but we're going to give a moment of silence. It's going to be 12 seconds. I'm going to do it right at the 1 hour mark on my recording. All right. It's tragic to talk about stories like this. No one wants to talk about this. No one wants to be in a position to address this, but we're here. And what makes it tough, even tougher, is earlier in the week, it already has been a lot for Virginia as it is in dealing with what we dealt with here in Richmond with the little girl being shot at the park. And I'm practically willing to provide some form of a donation in some manner because it's only fair. We just gotta be better. We gotta, like, this is moments like these. The incident at the park is a whole different, it's a stray bullet and it shouldn't even have occurred. But the shooting at Virginia Beach at the municipal facility, whomever that individual was, which I said, as I mentioned, I'm not going to mention his name. He needed help. So that is kind of going to be the message that I pass along for this week. If you need help, get help. Do not try to be extremely strong to the point that you're affecting your own mental well-being and possibly impacting the lives of others. What makes this story even more tragic, and I always bring this up, those people who have lost their lives, their families won't see them again here on earth. But the other side of it is that person who killed all of those people and eventually was killed, his family, and I'm saying it, I'm not giving a name, but I'm just giving the identities, male or female. But that individual's family has lost someone. And what makes it even worse is that person could have been lost long before this even happened. So I'm leaving y'all today with the moment of valuing those who are around you. Because we really, as people, don't understand the importance of how close others are to us until they're no longer here. And that's the message I'm passing to y'all today. I appreciate everybody's feedback, support, input, ways on making this a better show. Anything that y'all have sent me, anything that you said, I've been listening and I have been taking it all in. And I didn't say pause earlier in the show, but I'm going to get my pause for then, and I'm taking my pause now. Do the right thing for you and value you. Fellas, don't forget June. I'm going to remind y'all each week because we need to take care of ourselves as men. All of that being said, this is The Past signing out. I'm your host, BT. Podcast is uploaded on Spreaker.com. You can check out the shows on pastpodcast.com. I'm checking to make sure that the site is back up because I think it was down earlier. So hopefully that's all resolved. And you're hearing me through the Blue Yeti microphone. And I'm working with my homemade, home-rigged shock mount device, which is actually working pretty good for picking up the show. All right, another show closed, another one down. Catch y'all next week. We'll have more playoff updates, and we'll have some big stories in store for our next show. All right, y'all. Take care. Another episode is in the books. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. As I always share, if you'd like to get into podcasting, you can check out Spreaker.com. And if you're looking to invest in a microphone, or if you're looking to genuinely start with recording, I use the Blue Yeti microphone, but you may prefer to do the Samson Meteor. Just know that if it's your craft and it's something that you're meant to do it and do it well. That's my main thing to tell people about 2019. Do it and be reliable. Y'all take it easy.